Thank you. First of all, welcome and thank you for coming to Ivy Tech Bloomington campus. Some of you were here a couple of weeks ago when we had another discussion similar to this one about Complete College Indiana goals and how we're all working on these same goals together. Let me just quickly talk about some initiatives that we have launched at this campus and update you on where we are with some others. First of all, just to put things in perspective, in 2008, we had 196 high school students enrolled in dual credit classes. In 2008, 196. This fall, we have 1,031. So that's the growth in dual credit activity that we've accomplished at this campus over that period of time. Those 1,031 students are taking over 4,900 credit hours in 72 different course sections in 29 different high schools. So that's part of the outreach we've done, clearly not just in Monroe County, but beyond Monroe County, in terms of providing those dual credit opportunities. We have partnerships with the newly branded Academy for Science and Entrepreneurship here in Monroe County, formerly the New Tech High School. Also, we have partnerships with the early college programs at our high schools, with the Bloomington Graduation School, the Hoosier Hills Career Center, and with others. And in some cases, students are coming to our campus to take those dual credit credit courses integrated in our own college courses on this particular campus. Ashley mentioned the Complete College Indiana goals, the graduation rate, the 60% attainment rate. If the goal is to reach some sort of a 60% attainment rate by 2025, I've pointed out a number of times, I know where that graduating class is. They just started the 3rd grade in your elementary schools. And so what we've done at this campus is created a program called Ivy Arts for Kids, where we are reaching out to children ages 4 to 11 to create art programming activity for them at our Ivy Tech John Walden Arts Center. And we've integrated those activities in at least one of the elementary schools, Fairview Elementary School. And what we have provided through our development activities is scholarships for children in those grades to attend these Ivy Arts for Kids classes. I have a daughter in the 7th grade, and we are blessed that our daughter can take any of these classes that she wants to take, including the College for Kids courses that we offer on this campus for middle school students. Not all families are as fortunate. So we've created scholarship programs so that children who are on free and reduced lunch in our elementary schools can qualify for scholarships for these art activities. We know, and the research tells us, that creative experiences for kids in this age group improve their reading, math, and writing scores. And frankly, I'm more selfish about it than that. I want to get to these children and their parents now to help them understand that college is accessible and it's something that they can consider perhaps for the first time. So that's why our outreach includes even into the elementary schools. We host College Goal Sunday here annually, and we've created a program called Pathways to College Tuition Waiver Program, where, and it's only on this campus that this applies, any high school student who has taken a dual credit class from Ivy Tech Bloomington qualifies for a tuition waiver program. If they come to this campus and enroll as a full-time student on this campus, full-time 12 to 15 credit hours, we will waive the tuition of one 3-credit hour course for each semester for 4 consecutive semesters if they do the following. If they sit down with an academic advisor and create an individual academic plan, if they meet with a mentor, and if they maintain satisfactory academic progress. So we are having students leaving our high schools coming to this campus who have already earned credit hours. Last year, over 50% of the New Tech High School graduates came to this campus, or here this fall, including the valedictorian from that graduating class. Some of them had 15 to 18 credit hours already earned. We're waiving tuition for another 3-credit hour course if they'll maintain satisfactory academic progress and complete in that 2-year time frame. And we think that's possible for them. So I think my 1 minute is now up, and Tom, you get to stay employed here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here, folks, and I'm always happy to talk about the Career Center that we have here. I think it fits in nicely with what you were saying, Commissioner, in terms of the career pathways that we have, and we also take advantage of Ivy Tech in terms of the dual credits that we have with this particular campus. But to tell you a little bit about the Career Center, we are one of 49 districts in the state of Indiana Some districts have a career center, other districts have co-op programs. And ours happens to be a career center, and we serve 4 different counties, we serve 8 different high schools here. We have about 16 or 17 different programs that we now refer to in terms of career pathways. And that works just fine with us, because that allows us then to attract different kinds of kids than we normally would into the career center. In terms of numbers of students that we have about 450 kids that go to the career center, but we also have in our district over 3,000 students that are in career and tech ed programs or courses. So that's a pretty substantial number of high school students that are impacted by career and technology and also in career pathways. Career Pathways has been a very interesting and well thought out initiative here in the Monroe County Schools. Dr. DeMuth, who is the superintendent here, at the beginning of last year said that she wanted to make sure that every student that went through the Monroe County High Schools had a career pathway. And in terms of the work that we did at the Career Center and with our colleagues at both North High School, South High School, the graduation school, and the academy, then we have a lot of students who are now thinking in terms of career pathways rather than just individual specific courses. And what we find there is that those students who enter into high school come to us from the middle schools, and they've been talking about careers already. And then they move into the high schools, and the counselors that we have in the high school sit down with them and try to work out a plan that consists of their core 40 coursework and then 9th and 10th grade type electives or core courses that would fit within a pathway. And sometimes students will then choose to go to the Career Center, and other times they'll choose to stay within their own high school. If they choose to come to the Career Center, we offer both half-day programs and we offer block programs on a Bloomington North Block 8 schedule. So we have a lot of flexibility with what we do. In terms of working with our friends at Ivy Tech, I think we have probably about 100 or so hours of dual credit that we have with Ivy Tech, and that is a real draw for our students. And I'll be honest with you, when you tell that to a student at the beginning of their time at the Career Center, they might not think a lot about that, but we get them in there, we get the applications taken, get their C number, do the AccuPlacer, then start them along their coursework. But by the end of the time that they're with us, you know, we have one program where a student could walk out of the Career Center and have 15 credit hours already under their belt going into the fire science program here at Ivy Tech. So it's a huge, huge, huge benefit to our students. So in terms of us looking at what we are doing here and bringing these students in, the important part that I always tell my students when they come to see me in my office is that our job in the Career Center is to make sure that you walk from this side of the stage at Assembly Hall to that side of the stage at Assembly Hall, get that high school diploma. But we want, when you get that high school diploma, to have a direction. And that direction, we try to provide those career and technical education programs that are going to allow them to seamlessly transfer into Ivy Tech. And hopefully after that, if they so choose to go to an Indiana State, Ball State, Purdue, then they can just seamlessly transfer that also. So I think what we do at the Career Center, we provide them technical coursework. We provide them a list of competencies, because we're competency-based. And at the end of their program, they walk out of our school, back to their high schools with competencies that they can then take if they choose to get a job in an industry. They can take that and show what they have done, or if they want to go on to an Ivy Tech, that works also. And in terms of industrial certifications, we also offer those, AWS Sense in welding, and ATEF in auto tech. So it's very important for us to try to give those kids as many opportunities as they leave Hoosier Hills as we possibly can.
Good. Hi, I'm Beth Krause, and I am with the Richland B. Blossom Community School Corporation. So that nice little school corporation, hello Patty, down there, see face, on the west side. And I'm coming at it from a little different perspective, though both folks have talked about some of the things that not only in our high schools are we connected with the Career Center at Hoosier Hills, doing a lot in terms of our graduation coaches, but one of the things that we have also worked on out at RBB is our partner in education teams. So we now have PIE teams starting at our preschool all the way through high school. And what our PIE teams look at is they look at the goals of each school and how do we engage administrators, teachers, parents, and community members. looking at ways to support different activities, bringing information in, and those sorts of things. So one of the things that we do is we look at starting in preschool and our elementary, ways to engage families, ways to engage the community. Say that recently now we have a representative from Ivy Tech as a community rep on our PI team, starting with our elementary. And what we do with that is we look at ways to support goals of the school, academics, behavioral, and family engagement, but we look at ways to bring community partners in. Ivy Tech is there at the table, starting from preschool on up, looking at ways to do activities and events. One of the things that our Ivy Tech rep is doing is actually going to our after-school programs and talking about what is college and what is a career. Age-based for, I think she is starting with third graders, and bringing kids together around what does it mean to go to college. Then we also look at ways that we engage the families. How do we get to do events and activities and bring in partners like Ivy Tech and around math and science nights, that we want our parents to see partnerships with higher ed, get them thinking about that. We also do some forums around what does it cost to go to college? What does it cost to go to Ivy Tech? How do you start saving for that? How do you start understanding what it takes? So we're backing up all the way to preschool with our math and science nights, looking at those sorts of things. So to me, we're doing a lot of that of what are you thinking about from a very early age, and getting them to see partners, getting familiar with the faces. When parents come in for math and science night at the elementary school, they're going to see things about education. They're going to meet faces. They're going to get used to that. They're going to have that language. And then we also start talking about saving for college, higher education, what it takes to graduate, and have those parent forums and invite our preschool parents in from the very beginning. So we're doing a number of those sorts of things and really partnering, stepping back, along with the things that we're doing at the high school that really start to pull together parents, community members around the school goals, around attainment, around graduation, and thinking to the next level when you're in second and third grade. So that's kind of our, I guess, unique piece that we're doing in terms of our Partners in Education programs out at RDB with a lot of the great community partners.
I'm Macy Hughes. I'm the manager for the Franklin Initiative, which is a program run by the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. So as many of you know, the Franklin Initiative sort of has two parts. And our first part is really workforce development programming in the schools. So the business community cares very much about our school corporations in this county. They want to provide resources, time, whatever they can to support our students. So how we help, we go into the schools and we show kids, students, the spectrum of careers available to them. We do that a variety of ways. One is through our career speakers panels. We do, for any teacher can request a speaker panel. Currently, we run a program that's targeted at 21st Century Scholar students, and every other week they hear presentations from different business leaders in our community and professions, so that they know what's out there for them. They hear a lot about, go to college or get certifications, get training, but for many of them, they don't know what they want to do. So our job is to come in and show you, okay, this is what the career of a nurse looks like, this is what the career of a phlebotomist looks like, and maybe all the spectrum in between. So that's how we can help. We help facilitate business volunteers into the classroom to describe what their path looks like for students, so that, as previously mentioned, those students have a path to travel down. We run mock interviews and do job shadow placements for students. So we care very much that by the time that kids graduate from high school, they have an idea of what a handful of careers looks like, so that they can find something that's suitable for them. The other half of what we do, which I think is vital to the mission of our coalition, is the high school dropout prevention. So as many of you know, the Franklin Initiative has 3 graduation coaches, Drea, Patty, and Melanie. Told you I'd make you wave. And they're each placed full-time at their high school. So we have one at Edgewood High School, one at Bloomington High School North, and one at Bloomington High School South. They carry a caseload of at-risk students who have attendance issues, credit attainment issues, all of those things that make them high risk for dropping out, and our goal is to get them to graduate high school with a plan. Okay? As the Commissioner mentioned, we know that if students don't graduate from high school, they're sort of stuck right there in the water. So we help push them to that finish line and get them the momentum going forward. Last year we were very lucky, or I guess not lucky, it's a reflection of the skill of my coaches that they had a dropout rate of 5%. Okay, of the 44 seniors that they carried on their caseload last year, only 4 dropped out. So we as a chamber, we as the Franklin Initiative, we want those students to go into our community and be employed, be consumers in our economy, contribute. We also want them prepared for the workforce. Teachers have the tremendous burden of getting the knowledge into the students. We can help with the soft skills. Do they know how to shake hands and make eye contact during a job interview, which, as many of you who hire know, that can make or break it. So we partner very closely with the Academy of Science and Entrepreneurship, New Tech. We try to get those students who go through an entrepreneur and project-based learning placements in the community. Our coaches work endlessly to get their students to Ivy Tech to see the campus that's available for them, to get them into a training program that they oftentimes just don't know existed. So instead of feeling excluded, college isn't for me. You know, many of our students are first generation, they are living at or below the poverty line. Our job is to connect them to the resources that help them thrive and succeed.
All right. Can we give our panelists a little bit of applause? It's so exciting to see all of the work going on locally. That was very inspiring. Well, to continue sort of our action step, I'll invite Commissioner Lubbers back up to talk about some of the things going on with higher education, and then following her, Barbie Martin will come up and talk a little bit about the 21st Century Scholars Program.
Well, I really wanted to ask some questions, but maybe we'll have a chance to do that at the end about some of the 4 groups that were represented here today and others that are in the room as well, because I really think that your community should be very proud of the work that's underway. And I'm encouraged by the fact that you have metrics that you're really using to measure this, so that it's not just good intentions, but in fact we're actually following these students, we're measuring them. I was delighted earlier to hear you talking about the numbers that you talked from our college readiness reports. If you're not familiar with our college readiness reports, please go to the Commission's website and look. We're able to follow every high school student, where they go to college, if they need remediation, what they need remediation in, what their grade point average is. And this is instructive in 2 ways. It looks back to the high school curriculum and the curriculum from pre-K through 12 to see how students are being prepared. And then it also looks at what's happening at the college level to see how we're making sure that these students aren't anonymous when they get there, or making sure that they get the kind of help that they need. So I think each of the groups that talked today actually talked about efforts that are underway locally to help us get that done. So let's talk just a little bit at a state level about Reaching Higher, Achieving More, and what it's about, and what we're really trying to do in partnership with each of you. Reaching Higher, Achieving More is really an evolution of our 2008 strategic plan, which was called Reaching Higher. And so now we're trying to achieve more. And clearly, we are not where we need to be as a state yet, but I think we have in place policies and programs that are going to help us start to turn the corner. We're focused very explicitly on 3 areas, which would be increasing college completion, making sure that our colleges and universities and our system of higher education is more productive, and in the process of doing both of those, that we ensure and encourage academic quality. And we need all 3 of those. We can't avoid any one of those. Let's talk about completion first, because it's what we talk about a lot and why it's important, and why, whenever possible, it's important to encourage our students to complete on time. Now, we recognize the complexities of students' lives, and that in fact it's very difficult for some of our students to go to school full time. But we think whenever possible, we need to remove obstacles that keep them from completing earlier. Whenever a student completes, it's worth celebrating. But if we can get them to complete in 2 or 3 years at a community college, or in 4 years at a 4-year institution instead of 6 or 10, it benefits their lives and the state much sooner. So that means we need to look at lots of ways, as I mentioned earlier, of looking at the delivery of higher education in a different way. We actually look at how we fund higher education, our public institutions, based on increasing completion, and whenever possible, on-time completion as well. So when we say that only half of our students complete, the flip side of that is half of our students who started with an aspiration to have a college degree leave with no credential and debt. And that's the worst of all situations for them to be in, because they're digging themselves out of a deep hole without the ability to actually have the job that will help them do that. So we're very focused on completion, and I think it's really, I hope it will be a rallying call for your local community as well, to make sure that students understand their part and their role in that. Let me skip to the third one and then come back to productivity. Quality. A lot of people say you can't push completion and have quality at the same time. That we'll just give degrees, but they won't be we won't be ensured that those degrees actually mean something. Well, shame on us if that's the case. We need to make sure that quality is preserved as well. I often think about this, and those of you who spend your days in the K-12 sector know that over the course of the last 2 decades, and especially the last decade, the whole movement toward assessments and accountability has driven much of what we do in the K-12 sector. In the higher ed sector, we have really two choices. Either we can do that ourselves and get ahead of this and make sure that quality has been preserved, or someone will do it to higher ed. And it will be done in a way that perhaps you won't want to have the same ownership as if you have a chance to do it yourself. So we're trying to partner with all aspects of higher education to make sure that we have preserved the quality of the learning. At the end of the day, a degree is indicative of what you know. And so figuring out what you know and are able to do is what's really important and is driving a lot. In fact, as Dan said, our last 2 commission meetings and our third one, which we're having later this week in Richmond, is focused on the issues of quality and how you measure quality in higher education. And that brings us to the third part, which really drives both of the others, which is, whether we want to or not, we need to have a more productive system of higher education so that we can serve more students without large new influx of cash. If we're not going to get a lot more money and you're going to have to serve more students, then you have to have a more productive system to do that. And so we're, once again, the commission, we can't do that work. We know the work is done at the colleges and universities, but we can partner with them in the way that we do that. So we're working to build a more productive system. It's easier to talk about that in the context of administrative cost savings. It's more difficult when you get into the academic side of the enterprise, but we think both will be important. For us, the bottom line is really that we want more Hoosiers to complete quality credentials on time and in an affordable way. And that really drives everything that we do. That they complete when possible on time or in the least amount of time that it can possibly take for them with their life's conditions, and that they do so in an affordable way so that they don't have debt. I had the opportunity last January to give the first State of Higher Education address, and we really tried to talk about these issues and why it's really been important to have this discussion on a statewide level. And we talked a lot about a shared responsibility, and by that I meant that we really need to look at this from the standpoint that the state has an obligation to adequately fund higher education. And in fact, I'm pleased to say that during this last legislative session, with the encouragement of the commission, we saw the largest increase in higher education funding in the state in over 3 decades. We didn't ask for that just to ask for more money. We tied it to metrics that actually were tied to building a system that had students complete and that they were able to afford to complete. So we actually are driving more money to our higher education institutions, but we're distributing that money based on metrics that we value as a state, primarily getting more students to complete. And then we think there's a responsibility on the part of our colleges and universities, and that is that they need to, if we're going to make an increased investment in higher education, then we've got to call on them actually to keep their tuition and their costs as low as possible. Once again, I'm happy to say that you saw the lowest increases in tuition this year that you've seen in many years. It's something that we actually came up with a recommendation that increases in tuition be no more than 2%, and nearly all of our institutions came in at that or less. And if you'll look back over the last several budget cycles, that's the lowest increase you've seen in tuition in many, many years. We believe that the increases that you've seen in tuition in recent years are just not sustainable. And that you probably know this, that actually student debt has actually the highest in the country now, has exceeded credit card debt at over $1 trillion. You can't stay on that trajectory, and it's still at the same time expect more people to access and complete college. Finally, and equally importantly, we think students have a responsibility in all this as well. If we're going to try to prepare them, they need to take advantages of all the opportunities that are provided to them to stay on time to graduate on time whenever possible. It was mentioned, John mentioned, the students who enter college with AP or dual credit, so they get off to a strong start at the very beginning. It saves them money, it saves them time, it saves the state time as well. We want them, we're getting ready to start a campaign called 15 to Finish, which actually looks at what you need to do to complete on time. Most students think they're going to graduate on time, but they're not taking a course load that will allow them to do so. So we're going to try to help them in that regard as well, making sure that they understand what they need to do to graduate on time, and to limit the amount of money that they borrow to, as a general rule, no more than they could expect to make in their first job. So I think you saw a great response to those from lawmakers, from the colleges and universities who held tuition, who are looking at things like improving advising. Some of you may be involved in the advising convening that we're doing. The Commission on September 19th, just a couple weeks, is having our first statewide convening on advising, what we need to do to make sure that students understand. For example, the new legislative requirement that every student have a graduation plan, that we minimize the amount of wandering that they do when they get there. It will save them time and money. That they, as soon as possible, figure out what it is they want to do and they start in that major. That they narrow their ranges, and so that, and we understand that students are going to change their mind, but if they have started in a way that they don't lose credits, even if they move slightly to a different direction, it will help. Once again, back to this whole concept of shared responsibility. The state has done a lot to help in this regard. We've facilitated transfer so that the transfer between our 2- and 4-year institutions is more seamless than it has ever been. The legislators passed a 30 credit hour transfer core so that your first 30 credit hours will transfer seamlessly. And if you change your major, you'll still have 30 credit hours that you can take with you. It's very important. They passed legislation this last year for a second year, a single articulation pathway, so that your second year of studies should transfer as well. These are efforts that are making sure that students, in fact, are on, they're progressing at the time and the way that they should. So we're very grateful for the legislature and for the colleges and universities and for the students for stepping up. And in that regard, there's no program that's been more important to us than the 21st Century Scholars Program. I hope everyone in this room is familiar with our Scholars Program. It is a premier program for the state, has been replicated in other states as well. It is, as Barbie will tell you in just a moment, it is our attempt to say to Hoosier students, if you do what you need to do to be academically prepared for college, we will do what we need to do to make sure that you can get there and can afford to go to college. It's a great example of the shared responsibility between the state and the colleges and the students themselves. And I'm going to turn it over to Barbie because I think she will explain a little bit more about what's happening in this part of the state. There may be some questions. We have changed some aspects of the 21st Century Scholars Program to ensure that our scholars are more successful and to meet the new requirements of the